Hey Nerdinas! Today I am back with another series of videos. We are going to spend the next 4 videos discussing the internet. This video, to start off, will just be discussing some basic networking concepts and exactly what the internet is. From there, we will look at our main question. Essentially, if I were to type in a domain name in my browser, say nerdina.org, how exactly am I able to view the content in my browser? And this is what we'll be discussing. Essentially, we'll be trying to answer the question, how does the internet work? So, to begin with, what exactly is a network? Well, a computer network is a communication system between 2 or more computers, and the network itself is the physical infrastructure that enables data to be transmitted from one computer to the other, or really one device to any other device. So there are 2 main types of networks. There's a local area network, also called LAN, and a wide area network, also called WAN. So a local area network is just devices connected within a limited area. So that mainly means one building. So you can talk about one office building or one house, for example. A wide area network is essentially 2 or more interconnected local area networks, and a wide area network can cover a broad area. So now how does the internet play a part in these types of networks? The internet is an example of WAN, and it is the largest wide area network in the world. Essentially, the internet is able to connect millions of computers on not a local scale, but a global one. So now we pose the main question of exactly how the internet works. So imagine I open up my browser and type in nerdina.org. How is my computer able to process what I type in and then display the content on the homepage of Nerdina? So what exactly does nerdina.org mean? Nerdina.org is simply a domain name or a website URL. But domain names are created so users can type in something that is easy to remember. Computers, however, do not recognize domain names. So when I type in nerdina.org, the computer doesn't exactly know what to do with it. So, because computers don't recognize domain names, they do recognize something called an IP address. IP address stands for Internet Protocol Address, and it is essentially a unique numerical label assigned to all devices that are part of a computer network and use the internet. Essentially, every domain name, so nerdina.org would be the domain name, is mapped to a specific IP address, and the computer, by converting the domain name to an IP address, is able to recognize what website I would like to see. One commonly used type of IP address is Internet Protocol version 4, called IPv4 for short. This consists of 32 bits. A bit stands for binary digit, and a binary digit is a basic unit of information with a value of either 0 or 1. Binary digits themselves are based on the binary counting system, which is a base 2 number system, once again with only 2 numerical values, 0 and 1. The central processing unit of a computer can only process binary values. In fact, in our previous videos on the evolution of a computer, we discussed the concept of a binary digit and also the functionality of the CPU. In a typical decimal or base 10 system that we normally use on a daily basis, a number like 125 would be represented as having a hundreds place, a tens place, and a ones place. And 100 is of course equal to 10 squared, so 1 times 10 squared would be the 100. The tens place, 10, is equal to 10 to the first power, so 20 would be 2 times 10 to the first. And then you would add 10 to the 0, which is 1. So you would do 5 times 1 to get 5. And when you add all of those numbers, you would get 125. The base 2 system works in the same way. Given the number 68, if we wanted to convert it into a base 2 number, we would have to see what the highest power of 2 that fits into 68 is. So we can see that 2 to the 6 is equal to 64, and therefore in the column that would represent 2 to the 6, right here, we would place a 1 as we are multiplying 2 to the 6 times 1. Now, doing 68 minus 64, we see that we have 4 remaining, and therefore we would go over to the column with 2 squared and multiply it by 1, making this digit over here 1. Except we have all these places in between, 2 to the 5, 2 to the 4, and 2 to the 3. So just to insert a value, we have to write zeros here to make it obvious that this one is representing the 2 to the 6th place, and this one is representing the 2 squared column. And then similarly, to finish our number, we would have to end with 2 zeros for the last 2 places. Now, how exactly do we apply this in the world of computing and in mapping IP addresses to domain names? So here we have nerdina.org's IP address, 66.96.132.64. And if we were to convert each of those numbers into a binary digit, this over here is what it would look like. So, as you can see, this IP address has been separated into 4 groups of 8 bits. So in each of these groups, there are 8 separate numbers. Now, 8 bits of data is equal to 1 byte. So in this IP address, we have 4 separate bytes. Now, following the same pattern, if you think about it, in each and every one of these places, there could be either a 0 or a 1. So in all, there are 2 to the 32, or 4.3 billion possible IPv4 addresses. However, we have one problem, or there's one reason that IPv4 is no longer the ideal standard. Today, we have what is called the Internet of Things, which is a network of physical objects that are all assigned IP addresses. So think of all the things that are now connected to the internet, not just computers, but also devices like watches, for example. Because of this, so many devices are able to transfer data over a network. Okay, Nerdinas, that concludes our first video on the internet. Today we covered the basics of networking. So what exactly a network is, what the internet is, and then also domain names and IP addresses. Stay tuned for our next video where we'll talk about the domain name system and how exactly a domain name is converted into an IP address.